Hello, welcome to Luann's Creative Corner. I'm a librarian at a community college and I run a craft program for kids. I've been preparing for our upcoming round of activities in June, but with the current state of the world right now, it's uncertain whether that will happen. So if you're home and looking for something creative to do with your kids, let me suggest this simple origami box and lid with a floral decoration. I have a lot of fun making these, and I think you will too. So let's get started. You'll start with an 8.5 by 8.5 square of paper. I'm using Astro Bright's color paper. You can use any paper you might have, just make sure you start with a square shape. So then you fold it in half. Make sure that you reinforce the folds. The better folding you do as you start and as you go along, the nicer and crisper the box edges will be. Fold your paper in half, both directions, and you'll see you've created now a cross in the center of your paper. You will now fold your corners to the center and be very precise there as much as you can. And don't forget to reinforce those folds. You will fold all 4 corners to the center. By the way, the color I'm using here is called Celestial Blue. Now that you have all 4 corners folded to the center, you have a smaller square. And you will take the edge and fold it to the center, and you'll know right where that center is. It's the same center, and then match your edges so that they are straight with the edge of the square, and make sure and reinforce that. You have more layers there of paper, so you want to make sure to run your finger along it. If you have a bone folder or even something like a popsicle stick, can help to run along and reinforce those folds. You're going to turn to the other direction and you're going to do the same type of fold. I open up the 2 flaps so that I don't have as much paper to fold through, and then I can also line it up with my folds from before. I can line those up and make sure they're straight. And now we're to the part where we get to turn it into a box. So if you'll notice right here, there are these diagonal lines from folds you've made before. And if you pull those sides up, then that right there is going to be the bottom of your box. And as you fold right there like that and pull those sides up, you are creating the sides of your box. And then that flap comes right over and fits right into the center of your box. And then you do the other side just the exact same way. Find those diagonal folds, which if you've done nice crisp folds should just want to fold that way. And then as you see how I'm doing it with my thumbs, that just brings it up and turns it into a 3D box. And there is the base of your box. So this is the bottom of the box. The next step is optional, but I think it's fun to decorate your box a little on the inside. And adding a sticker holds the flaps securely in place. Next, we'll work on the lid. Use a piece of paper the exact same size as the paper you used for the base of your box. I'm using again an 8.5 by 8.5 inch piece of paper. The color's the same, but I'm going to mix and match the colors with boxes I've made previously. I decided to show here one way to make the box without having any fold lines on the top. This adds just a bit to the level of difficulty and doesn't matter a whole lot in this case since I'll be covering it up with a flower, but I thought I'd show it here in case you'd like to do something different with the top of your box. And what really matters is that you fold those corners into the center of your paper. The folds are exactly the same as the folds for the base, except one adjustment. So as you see, I started here, I folded all to the center, and I'm showing there's no lines, no fold lines there. Next, you need to fold the edge to the center. This is where you will make the one adjustment. The lid needs to be just slightly larger than the base of your box. So you will fold it just a bit away from the center by about 1/8 of an inch. As you can see there, just a little bit. Turn it over and do the same on the other side, and again, adjust by about 1/8 of an inch. So you have just a little gap there, whereas on the base of your box, those edges were flush with each other right there. I'll freeze it right there so you can see. Don't worry about the distance too much because you can always adjust it later, which I'll show you. And as you make more of these boxes, you get better at judging how much distance to leave. Now you turn the box and do the same folds going the other way. Again, I open the flaps so that there aren't as many layers of paper to fold, and I can now square it up with my folds from the previous step. And again, remember on this is your lid, you want to leave that gap. Try to leave the same amount of gap that you left in the previous step, although it can all be adjusted if needed once you fit it to the base of your box. Now comes the fun part of turning it into a 3D box. One disadvantage of making it without the fold lines on the top is that those diagonal folds are not there for you. So I recommend that you practice making the box several times before you attempt making it without the fold lines. But as you can see, it's just a matter of adding those folds in now. Just add in a diagonal fold in that square right there and do it on all 4 sides. And now you're ready to turn it into a 3D box, just like you did with the base. If you've done some good creases on your diagonal folds, you'll see the box just practically puts itself together. So you put your thumbs on either side and that flap folds right up in. And there you go. So now you have the lid for your box. And as before, I like to decorate it a little and anchor those flaps in with a decorative sticker. Now it's time to put the base and the lid together and see if you like how they fit. You can see there's just a bit of extra space there, and I wish I didn't already put the sticker. So think of that, test it before you put your sticker in. So look at your folds and see which could be tightened up just a little, and you can also measure against the base of your box and see. The danger here now is tightening it up too much, and then the base won't fit inside the lid. So in this case, less is more. It's usually just a tiny bit, depending how much space there was when you fit the base of your into the lid. And so also make sure to keep those folds straight, just like you did before. You can test it and see, and then put the box back together and see how it fits. And I'm testing it before I get it all back together to see, do I like how tight it is. You don't want it too tight, because then sometimes it won't even fit in, or it will be hard to get it out. But if you're happy with how it fits, then you can put that sticker back in, and now you have a box base and a lid, and it all goes together. And you can see, I'm showing there, you can barely tell where I've adjusted those folds. Now that the box is ready, it's time to decorate it. If we get to have our craft program in June, kids will have the chance to decorate their box with layered flower die cuts. We have Ellison SureCut die cuts in the library, and the ones I'm using here are flower layered number 2, leaves and vine, and also leaves number 5. See what flower die cuts you have in your stash, or draw and cut your own flowers out of some colored cardstock. The flowers I'm using are about 3.5 inches in diameter. That's the larger ones, and then the smaller are about 2.25 inches. So that kind of tells you the size if you're going to draw your own. And then add some leaves too. It adds a really nice touch. Also, I had some decorative brads, but any brad that you have would work. Now I'm showing a technique that will add a little bit of dimension and texture to your flower. Of course, you don't have to do this. This is optional, but if you have a simple makeup sponge and some ink, then or a sponge dauber, that will work to sponge a little bit of color just for some contrast and texture there along the edges of your flowers. So I'm going to sponge around both layers of my flowers, and then also around the leaves. If you don't have ink or sponges, you could also add some detail and some color with crayons or markers. Just any little bit that kind of adds to make those flowers not quite so flat. You could also cut your flowers from some textured kind of a cardstock or pattern paper. Just look around and see what you have and be creative. You can also add some interest by using some gel pens, especially the sparkle gel pens, to add veins along on your the flower petals and then also on your leaves. And this is a quick and easy way to add a little bit of sparkle and some texture to your flower. Once you're happy with how your flower looks, then you can assemble it. Glue it together with any glue that you have, some Elmer's glue or a glue stick, and that brad helps to keep your layers together, but it doesn't help with the leaves. So you just have to glue those and then glue it to the top of your box. Next, I have an option for more of a 3D flower, and this takes more layers. The one that you're seeing there on the side that's already made, I did without any of the sponging, and it looks great. The added layers really adds, but now I'm going to do one with the sponging. So in order to make this, I have one of the smaller flowers that's the same that I used before, and then you just cut out one of the petals, and then glue where the two petals together where that petal was cut out. Glue that together, and that suddenly makes your flower into more of a 3D shape. Then I put that brad still in that center. Make sure you have a place to poke that brad through the center. And then it's kind of pointy there, and so I just squished up all that part up into the brad so that it would be flat, so that it could go together with the other flowers. And so then here's the next layer. Do the same thing, cut out one of the petals, glue it there. I'm using some Eileen tacky glue, but even Elmer's glue would work. This is just what I had on hand. Any type of wet glue, but you could also use like some double-sided tape there as well. And then same thing, layer that in there and squish that pointy part that's coming through where the brad is, squish it kind of flat up against so that your brad can fit through all those layers as well. All right, so this one I'm going to leave it flat, but I'm going to kind of just fold it up. And I actually folded some of those layers just a little bit, just where the petals were. I didn't cut anything out. I just wanted it to have a bit of a fold to it. And then this one I kept completely flat. I didn't show you, but I had previously sponged around the sides of all of those pieces to add a little bit of interest, some depth there to that flower, and it really added. And then here I am deciding which leaves from the ones I had left over from before, and some of that spirally vine part as well. So here you have a simple origami box decorated with a layered flower. It's called a Masu box, although I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I love the 3D flower on top, although there are many other ways to decorate this box. Use regular origami paper or pattern paper. Make your own pattern paper by drawing and coloring your own artwork onto the paper before folding it. You could also stamp onto the paper and use some stencils or rubbing plates to add texture. Last Christmas, I made some with poinsettias on top using Stampin' Up's Festive Flower Builder Punch, and I really liked how they turned out as well. What ideas do you have for decorating the top of this box? I would love to see what you create. Thanks for joining me today at Luann's Creative Corner. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much. Bye.